That's going to be with us. Also, of course, yesterday was a grand opening of the Reclaim store that DRT does, and so proud of Mark and Laura for all that you've done. And so if you haven't been able to go there, it's, I think, Wednesday through Saturday, so it's great hours, and what a great blessing to be able to share so much of that. So I don't think there was anything else, but just like share, there's a lot going on. Even though it's difficult times, life continues to move on, and God continues to move on. God hasn't taken a hiatus this last year and hasn't been working. He is working and active, and hopefully He is in you as well. So last week I talked about the lie, like the anti-Ten Commandments, and talked about how follow your heart. It's probably the number one bad society commandments that we have, and so I'm just don't want to leave you hanging with that. Okay, what do we do then? I want to follow that a little bit with some more thinking, and I appreciate John reading Proverbs 4:20 through 27. That's a great passage, and maybe during your meditation times this week, you can focus on that on one day. And so this idea of following your heart, and it's interesting. I'm not going to show you what the real heart looks like again. I know that grossed a couple of people out. Just look at it this way. So synonyms for heart that we think about when people say follow your heart, and that's like desire, your pride even, lust. And so all those kind of, you can replace that for heart, and that's really what it's saying. Following your desire, your pride. If my pride really gets hurt, then that must have been really bad. And so it's interesting. So I'm just going to read these passages again real quick just as a refresher. This is how I ended last week's sermon. The heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can understand it? Now, after reading that verse, you may think, well, I need to get rid of my heart. Well, in a way, but not your real heart. That won't have really good consequences. Proverbs 28:26, one who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but one who walks wisely will flee to safety. And of course, where's that safety? In the Lord. Matthew 15:19, for from within, out of the hearts of people, come the evil thoughts, acts of sexual immorality, thefts, murders, and acts of adultery. And Jesus goes on there. And your small group may be focused on this passage tonight. I know mine will be some. In Genesis 6:5, then the Lord saw that the wickedness of mankind was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. So people may ask, why did God send the flood in the times of Noah? And you can answer that saying, well, because people were following their hearts. That's why. And it's because of that, God destroyed almost the whole world, except for 8 people. So the heart, though, is teachable. That's good news. So your heart is bad because it's been corrupted by the world. Good news is, it is teachable. You look at someone in school and say, that kid is just horrible. We don't just write off that kid and say, okay, that kid's done forever. No, we can change. We can change our actions, and our heart is moldable. So there is hope for us. There is hope for us totally. Look at Deuteronomy 4:9 here. God said this through Moses, only be careful for yourself and watch over your soul diligently, so that you do not forget the things which your eyes have seen, and they do not depart from your heart all the days of your life, but make them known to your sons and your grandsons. So what God is saying here through Moses is that, everything that you saw, what I did bringing you out of Egypt, don't forget that. Don't let it depart from your heart. Can you imagine the impact that had on the Israelites on their heart when they were delivered from Egypt, and after they were delivered through 40 years in the wilderness? That had a huge impact on them. Devoted to God, God can do anything. He says, don't let this leave your heart. Even more so, pass it on to your kids and your grandkids. Okay? So take the impression that you have on your heart and put that on the hearts of next generations. And that happens, doesn't it? That's why we share sacrifices that our parents or grandparents made. How many of you have been shared a story of a family member sacrifice that they made in a war? Most of us have. And that made an impression on you. And you're like, I need to pass this on to the next generation so we don't forget. And it makes an impression on your heart. Okay? And so your heart help you and is teachable, so it is moldable. Definitely marketing in the world knows that because they'll try and train your heart in certain ways, right? What soda to buy and everything, the way you should be. So I want to talk about this idea of guarding your heart, protecting your heart. And so this sets a pivotal aspect of life. If you don't guard your heart, you give everybody access to it, you're really putting yourself in danger, okay? And so look at this, Proverbs 4:20 through 27 again. Let's read this. My son, this is Solomon, wisest man ever, besides Jesus, said this. My son, pay attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. They are not to escape from your sight. Keep them in the midst of your heart, for they are life to those who find them and healing to all their body. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. Rid yourself of a deceitful mouth and keep devious speech far from you. Let your eyes look directly ahead and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. Watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Turn your foot from evil. What a wonderful passage. Each one of those verses could speak a whole lesson on. And so this is just good to meditate on at some time during this week. I'm just going to focus on a couple of aspects there. The first one is listen and learn. That's the wisest thing, right? Listen and learn from God. Because we're learning all the time. We're learning all the time. No matter how old you are, you're learning all the time. You may think that you're too old to learn or you're young and learning's not important, but you're all learning. The question is, what are you learning? Who are you allowing to teach you is so important. And the thing is, we are allowing things and people and influences teaching us without even being aware of it. So right here, the writer here is saying, listen and learn. Pay attention to my words, okay? And even more so, in your heart. How do you keep something in your heart? Have you thought about that? How do you do that? Well, by focusing on it, by meditating on it, reading it, talking about it, listening to lessons about it, talking about it with other people, and sacrifice for it. These are ways that you can do. You go out of your way to make sure that it stays in your heart. Some people say, well, if it needs to be in the heart, then my heart will just know it. It's amazing how people put so much power to the heart, like the heart's going to go out and find things while you're sleeping. It's going to go on Wikipedia and learn things and try to include it in your life. No, the heart doesn't work that way. The heart, goes by your guidance. Your guidance. Hopefully your mind is leading your Trinity and not your heart. And so you can guide your heart and feed it with good food if you do that. And so it's interesting that this is an ongoing activity of keeping things in our heart and our heart focused on the right aspect. How many people do you think, once they come to the Lord, they get baptized into His name, and they think, I'm done. I just graduated. I don't need to learn anything else ever again. Or they take, John 3:16 out of context. I just need to believe that Jesus exists and I'm good. I don't need to do anything else. No, it's much more than that, isn't it? It's an ongoing education that we need to continue to learn and draw closer to God and making sure that we are keeping in our heart the important things that God wants us to. Okay? So this idea of guarding your heart, I want us to focus on, because in guarding your heart, the idea is you're guarding it from something, right? You're guarding it from something. When you put a fence up or you lock your door, there's something you want to keep out. So you have to think about the exposure that your heart is exposed to and the influences that it's having, okay? All of you young people out there and all of you parents and grandparents, I'm sure you had this conversation. with your kids and grandkids, and hopefully you young people, keep in mind about who you date. Don't date anybody that you wouldn't even entertain to think about that you would marry one day. I had this as a hard, fast rule. I never dated anybody that wasn't a Christian and a committed Christian. Because I knew that I didn't want to play with my heart. I already had friends that dated someone that they probably shouldn't have dated, and then made it really hard on them later. Either they had to have a tough breakup, or they were yoked with someone that didn't have the same goals and focus. It makes it really hard, right? I know I talked about this with Dave and Shannon in premarital counseling. It's so good to have the same focus on God, because then you're helping each other out. So dating is just a great example that you need to guard and protect your heart. Your heart is vulnerable, even the toughest one of you. Your heart is tender. All right? I remember this week, Aaron Neville. Have you ever heard the song that he sang, Everybody Plays the Fool? And it's so true. How many of you have been hurt in a romantic relationship? I'm sure all of us probably have. And so you need to guard your heart, your friends. You need to pick your friends wisely, because they are having a big influence on you, okay? And so you have to ask this question in your life. Are you getting closer or farther from God? Now, if you're choosing to come to church today, you're doing a good job. You're trying to come closer to God, stay close to God, good. But maybe you're coming because you felt yourself drifting from God some. You're either one or the other. You're either getting closer to God or getting farther away. There's no standing pat, standing still, and say, okay, I'm comfortable where I am with God. I'm just going to stay here now. The thing is, God is always moving and doing things. If you're on a trip with your family, let's say you're going to go to Yellowstone, and you say, oh, this trip's going great. I'm just going to stay here now since we're together. And you stopped in Sioux City. Okay? And they went on. They left you. Okay? No, you have to stay on that path. You have to stay on that God. It's not enough just to be with God, but you need to stay with God. Because if not, you're on the wrong path. So like it said there at the end of Proverbs, watch your path, and all your ways will be established. Okay? You have to continue to watch your path. And it's kind of tough when you're on the path to watch it. So that's why it's so good to have small groups and talk about it with friends. Like, you think I'm doing pretty good? Am I on the right path? Or you could talk to a friend that you're close to. It's like, I'm a little worried about you. I think you're straying a little bit to the left or to the right. And so I know that can be tough. And I knew Dylan was going to talk about tattoos in class this morning. And so I looked at this. I had this picture already. And so if you did get tattoos, like, guard your heart. Put it down right there. So it'd be neat to have two hands, like guard your heart right here, and the passage there on the other one. Proverbs 4:23. Put it together. Oh, that's a nice fuzzy feeling. Stop it. And so, yeah, those fuzzy feelings can lead you the wrong way. But those tattoos, that'd be a neat one. Guard your heart. Do something like that. But we need to be mindful of that all the time. That we need to guard our heart, not just yesterday, not just today, but every day, all the time. All right? And so this idea of being on guard. Do you get tired, or maybe you get complacent of being on guard? And you just get relaxed. You let down your guard sometimes. It happens to us all. And, this idea of on guard comes from this French term of en garde. Okay? And if you didn't know that, that's where we get that term. It's from fencing. Okay? And what it means is getting ready. That means I'm about to attack. All right? En garde. Protect yourself, because I'm coming. All right? And so that's the idea of Proverbs and also in Ephesians, where it talks about guard yourself, guard your heart, because you are about to be under attack. You are and will be under attack as long as you're here on this earth. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. If you're not under attack, then you might be safe in the folds of the devil already. Okay? Only those that are with God are going to be under attack by the devil. And so if you are with God, which all of us, I believe, are, you're going to be under attack and try to attack you and take you away from God. He doesn't care where you go. He just doesn't want you with God. Focus on sports. Focus on whatever. Focus on. Just don't focus on God. All right? And so it's interesting because this is a spiritual battle that is happening now for your heart, for your desire, for your attention, for your devotion. This attack is always going on you. So you need to be on guard all the time and know these attacks are coming. So you have to think about it and think about where it's coming. So you have your guard up, and this guard is spiritual. Pray often. Read the scripture often to know what the Bible says about things. Because I imagine there's a ton of people that are Christians, and they think following your heart makes great sense. But obviously the Bible, like I talked about last week, it talks about against that. So that's why we busy ourselves with God's work. That's a great way to be on guard. Because if you're so focused about God, you don't give time for other things to come in. All right? Going back to the dating concept, it's a great place to meet someone to date is at church. You know, you don't see that in the media anymore, but it's true, you know, or spiritual going-ons. Do something where you find somebody. So focus on this aspect of the verse. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. Okay? What was he saying there? That what we produce comes from our heart, good and bad. Now that picture is beautiful. Oh, must be a beautiful heart. Look how beautiful that scene is. Well, also bad things can come from our heart. All right? You may say, oh, you know, why did I say that? I don't know why my tongue did that. Well, the tongue doesn't act on its own, although it seems like it does at times. It pours out from the heart. And if it's not in the heart, it won't come out. Or if your mind hasn't let it there, then it won't come out later. So you have to think about this and really guard your heart. Make sure you're putting only good nutrition into your heart. And that goes with this right here. My problem was not my tongue, but my heart. So if you do say something wrong, and we all do at this time, don't say, oh, I'm sorry I said that. Really, I apologize that that's even in my heart. I apologize that's on my mind, in my mind. And I can talk it over with God. Say, God, please clean my heart and help my heart so this doesn't come out. And Jesus, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay? Exactly what he said. Your mouth and lifestyle will expose you. Will expose who you are and what you have inside. Good and bad. Now, it's not that we have to be perfect. We all make mistakes. But let you know, the things you watch, things you listen to, is planting seeds in your heart. All right? And so it's good to protect that. Instead of watching your mouth, you need to watch your heart and everything that you put in. So I like this passage in Ephesians 4, 22 through 24. It says, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God, through righteousness and holiness. Isn't that wonderful? So once again, you can be made new. Your heart can be healed. You don't have to be the way you were yesterday, and actually, as a Christian, you're not supposed to be who you were yesterday. When you come to God, and you come to Jesus, you are agreeing to change. You're agreeing to not to be the person that you were before. Does that offend you? If you did, let's say, stay true with the dating concept, you meet on dates like, wow, I'm really glad I get to know you, but you're going to have to change completely. How would that go over? Well, I never. Well, when you come to Jesus, that's what he's saying. I'm so glad you want to come into my life and we're going to be together forever. Great. We have a lot to work on because you're a mess. That's what Jesus is saying when you come to him. And the thing is, he continues to need to work on you. He's the forever psychologist that you go see, okay? And he's like, great, I'm glad we conquered that. And you're thinking, whew. He's like, next, flips the page. Because we have a lot to work on. But isn't it good that we're becoming better, we're resembling more God and Christ, like it says in 2 Corinthians 3:18. And so he says, die to yourself. Don't become less of yourself, but die to yourself. Later on in Ephesians, talking about the sword of truth, we have to get that sword and stab ourselves every morning. It's like, die to yourself. Is that extreme? That's Christianity. Die to yourself. You need to put yourself away and say, you know what? If there's good in me, praise be to God, it's Jesus Christ. Our pride needs to be about Jesus. Our boasting needs to be about God. And our apologies about ourselves. We never have to apologize for what Jesus does in our life. But when we do have to apologize, it's out of our own heart, not the heart of God. And so, be filled with God and leave no room for your own heart. Because isn't it better to have the heart of God in your life? And so really what we're talking about, we need a heart transplant. Who's ready for a heart transplant? A spiritual one. Got to be careful there. Don't want to promise more than I can deliver. So, but you know what? God wants this as well. When you come to him, he's wanting to give you a spiritual heart transplant. He's wanting to get rid of that old nasty thing and put in something beautiful, full of light, love, joy, hope, and promise. And he delivers. You don't have to wait on a long waiting list. He's only waiting on you. It's all dependent on you, whether you're going to have this wonderful heart of God, this heart of light. Isn't it great to see that light there in the middle of that heart? That's God's light, God's heart that he wants to give you. And so yes, man's heart has to be destroyed, whether it be by flood, your choice. God needs that to go away. And it's because it's our own deceitfulness. I know our small group, we're going to discuss this some more tonight. And I want to encourage you on your journey, on your path, to be going towards God and not away from God. The thing is, it's always up to you. The choice is always up to you. If you haven't made that decision to come to God, to start that journey, which all starts, it doesn't end, it starts in baptism right here. This is the beginning of the journey, is getting baptized, give yourself over to God and Jesus, and begin your journey with God. And we try, as a loving church, try to help each other continue on this journey together. We're on it together. We're all sinners trying to be healthier. We make mistakes, but we're striving to get to heaven. If this speaks to you and you want to talk about it, please come forward as we sing this song.